Honore Recorder, welcome to the first of several special episodes we're doing here on the Daily Writer podcast. Good to have you back. This is, I think, your third or fourth time. So always enjoy chatting with you.
Always enjoy talking with you, Kent. Thank you so much.
So we are here doing what is actually the first time I've done this kind of a thing here on the show, which is having a guest on, but we're actually breaking up this conversation into five different, I guess you would call this mini episodes or shorter episodes.
Wow.
And the reason we're doing this is because I want to talk for several episodes, not just one, about your amazing brand new book called The Best-Selling Book Formula. I'm not sure why I'm holding this up for you to see because you wrote this. It's not like this is a shock to you.
Flip mine so you can see it. They're the same.
I was telling somebody the other day, maybe it was you or my wife, it was somebody in my circle, how the physical size of this book, it literally makes me just want to pick it up and carry it with me everywhere.
Please
There's
do that.
something to that. I think it's just a
Feel free to
cute,
do that.
great
And
little
if you
book.
lose it, I'll send you another one.
Yeah, I can carry them with me everywhere. I can just give them out like potato chips,
Yes. Yes,
which would be
exactly.
awesome. So one of the reasons I wanted to set up this conversation this way instead of just doing one single interview is because I think this is a very different book than almost any other book that I've ever seen for writers in the sense that it's giving authors a really simple system for doing something that's really important with their book, which is baking into it a system for writing a bestseller. And I wanted to explore this on several episodes because this is a really, really great concept that I've never heard anybody talk about before. So, first of all, thanks for writing an amazing book. I think this is genius.
Well, thank you. And also, I'm going to give you a hat tip because it's all your fault. I mean, thank you for telling me to write this book. So, for those listening who don't know what I'm talking about, this was a blog post that I wrote based on some observations and kind of a little mini scientific study that I did on why some books do better than others. Why do authors do better than others? And I used to say, oh, he's a lightning strike, or she got lucky, or whatever. And then I started to question my assumptions basically around everything, but certainly around this concept of why some books are that are not so great become bestsellers and best earners, and why some books that are fantastic never get traction. And so I just wrote a simple blog post about it, put it out in my newsletter. And then someone named Kent Sanders said, oh, you should write a book about this. I've never heard this before. And
Mm.
honestly, it's because you're right. You haven't heard it before because it's something that I did on my own. I went kind of on a mission to figure out what are the things that best
Mm.
selling and best earning books have in common, and figured out that there are four.
I feel like you're sort of like the Joseph Campbell of nonfiction books. What I mean by that is, of course, everybody who studies storytelling or mythology, they're going to be familiar with that name because Joseph Campbell essentially identified a formula for storytelling that is now the template for telling stories. But he didn't create it from scratch. He just recognized what do all the powerful stories and myths that humanity has shared, what do all those have in common? And he kind of gave structure to something that was already baked into the system, but
Right.
he really helped people to understand it and then gave them a way to use it for their own stories. And I think that's kind of what you've done here is you've identified these four super important traits that are a part of the best books out there, the best nonfiction books, and you've made it really easy for us to understand it and implement it. So let's dig into this a little bit.
Sure.
Give us kind of a rundown of what is the best-selling book formula in a nutshell, and why should we be using this for our nonfiction books?
So the best-selling book formula in a nutshell are the four keys that are usually included in all books that become best earning books over time. So we all know the term best selling, but really anyone can be a best selling author, right? So we can
Hmm.
off to the side because everyone who's an author knows, oh, you can sell 5 copies of a book in an hour and then you become a
Right.
selling author. That doesn't mean you've made any money. So I want to be a best earning author. I want my books to be best earning and to earn money for a decade. So there are four keys or four common elements of most best earning books. And they are that they are easy to read, they are easy to remember, they are easy to do or implement, and they are easy to share.
Okay. So we're going to dive into more of those in subsequent episodes of this kind of mini series that we're doing. But let's talk for a second before we wrap up this episode about some of the books that you have noticed this formula in. And I didn't prepare you beforehand with this question, but what are
Okay.
2 or 3 books that you have noticed have this formula, and how do they use this?
So in the book, I talk about three nonfiction books and one fiction book. The first one, the most intimate example that I have is The Miracle Morning. I worked very closely with Hal to create that series. And Hal's book is easy to read. So it's written at a grade level that is easy for people to read, right? So we're going to talk about these things in more depth, but the Miracle Morning itself is easy to read, it's easy to remember, it's easy to do, and it's easy to share. Um, Another one would be The Daily Stoic, and I don't talk about that in the best-selling book formula, but it is easy to remember, easy to read, easy to do, and easy to share.
Hmm.
And part of this whole process is figuring out, like, how do you get someone to say, I have to read this book right now, right? Like, share the
Right.
book and
Right.
read it right now. And so almost every book that's my favorite book, Think and Grow Rich, Psycho Cybernetics, The Law of Success. Um, I recently rediscovered You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor. And of
Hmm.
course, that book meets the best-selling book formula. I would say that 18 Words to Live By meets that criteria.
Who wrote that? That's
Some
sounds like a
genius guy
lame
out of
book. I
St.
wouldn't read it
Louis.
myself.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Of course, for people listening, that's my own book.
Yeah. So there's something about the author and or the book and or the message contained in the book that has all of these elements, or one that stands out so much that it's unforgettable.
Hmm.
Yeah.
See, I love that because I feel like a lot of times writers struggle over the words there because there's so much emphasis by literary types in the book world and in the author world where it's like you've got to have this certain kind of language that you've got to use and you've got to be like this really eloquent writer, and they struggle over the words so much. But then if you have a book that sounds pretty but it doesn't contain these elements, then it's going to be really hard to have a successful book, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it's why a lot of the advice that I give in my different courses and books makes even more sense now that I've dissected this. And when I say, don't be cute or clever with your book title, be straightforward and direct, right? You want it to be easy to remember, you want it to be easy to share.
Hmm.
And spoiler alert, I talk about how The Morning Miracle is the wrong title for the book. People get the title wrong all the time, but it's The Miracle Morning, but they can remember it, right? They can remember the
Yeah.
essence of it, and they're sharing it. They're compelled to share it for reasons which we will talk about later in the week. So please tune in. But you want to make sure that you're really being direct and straightforward with your title because you want people to be able to easily recall it.
And the title part is kind of an art and a science, isn't it? I know you've thought a lot about titles. You've studied this at length, and we probably don't have time to go into all of the depths of how to create a good book title. But are there a couple tips that you could give us about
Yeah.
when you're thinking about book titles? Because that's the first thing people are going to encounter is the title of the actual book. So how can people think about creating a really great title for their book in addition to all the other things that we're going to talk about?
Yeah. So when I give advice about a title, the first thing I say is don't be cute or clever.
Hmm.
So don't use a turn of a phrase, or I'll use my name in honoreism, right? So like something that I would say, you will notice that I call this the best-selling book formula, but what I'm focused on is the best earning book. But if I had
Okay.
titled it the best earning book formula, nobody knows what that is.
Right. Right.
And someone asked me why, if I'm known for this, why didn't I title the book that way? And Honore, everybody knows you for that. It's like, well, all 8 people on the planet who know me know
There's a
know
few more
about
than
this
eight.
know about this concept, but the other 8 billion people don't know what a best earning book is. And
Hmm.
rather than making them guess, I'm using a phrase that they understand. And then I'm talking about in the introduction what I actually mean when I just say best selling. I actually
Okay.
mean best earning. So you want to be direct and use something that people understand right off the bat, because you will not be there to explain what 18 words to live by means. You
Yeah.
will not be there
Yep.
to explain what the faith of Elvis is. So people have to get it right off the bat. If they think that they don't know, and I throw myself under the bus in the book because I mistitled my book on business networking. And it's called Business Dating. And I thought, oh, I'm just being clever. I'm applying dating rules to networking and business, and everyone's going to just think that's so clever. Except a lot of people said, I'm already happily married. I don't need a book on dating in the workplace. And so many people have not read my book because I didn't title it effectively. So making sure that your title answers the question, what is the book about? And the subtitle answers the question, what do I, meaning I, the reader, get in exchange for my time and money? So the title is the what, and the subtitle is the promise.
Okay. Love it. That's immensely helpful. That right there is going to save people a lot of heartache because they struggle over titles and they wonder, is this a good title? Is this a good title? So just obeying those couple of principles, I think, is going to be super valuable. Well, this has been great. We're going to wrap up this episode, and we will see you in the next episode when we start to dive into some specifics from the best selling book formula.